one of the great evenings of my life was having Brian Johnson of AC/DC sing me English folk songs at the nicest hotel in the bar in Detroit. I'm coming on right now. We don't have any music today. So anyway. All right, Tri-City Sports Now. You heard a little bit of the chit-chat maybe coming out from the our next guest, Steve Forbes. The ETSU Buccaneers coming off a very disappointing loss, 68-66 to the Xavier Musketeers. And it's a game in which ETSU looked like they were going to have this great victory. At one point, they led by 22, and then Xavier came back in the second half to win it at the end. I guess the first question I would ask is, Steve Forbes, what did you say to your team after that game?
Yeah, it was a hard locker room. It's harder. I think it's one of the hardest losses I've ever had in 28 years, and I felt really bad, and I felt like I didn't do a good enough job down the stretch to help our team win. And our kids took it hard. They felt like they could win. We had a lot of confidence going into the game. We talked a lot about getting a memorable win for the rest of our lives, winning on a Saturday in December, college basketball, when there's really no football going on, and kind of being the talk of the day. And, I felt like going into the game, it could have been one of the best non-conference road wins, in school history, playing the top 15 on the road. Now, I know Arizona was a great win, but that was, in the tournament. So I told them the regular season non-conference road win, this would be about as good as it gets in school history. And we were right there. And it was very hard to lose that game. And, it's hard. It's been harder for me to get over it than the players. I think the players, we practiced yesterday, and they did really good. They were great. And, so afterwards it was tough. I talked to them about, we got to learn from what just happened. So it can't happen again. And they know that. We've talked a lot about those things, and we can learn from this and move forward.
Well, Steve Forbes, you mentioned this, and it could have been one of the big non-conference victories. We're only actually, I think, what is today, 4 days off of the 49th anniversary when ETSU beat the 9th-ranked Duke Blue Devils on the road. So if you want to talk about conference victories and all this, but I guess one of the things that I think is refreshing over such a disappointing loss, and one that a harder fan base probably would be raking you over the coals a little bit more than, is that it does show how far ETSU has arrived. And here's what I'm talking about on this. I think the most famous game ETSU basketball history is probably the 1-point loss, 89 NCAA tournament. And people around here have historically talked about that like it's a victory, which has always bothered me a little bit. Now, here you have another very fine opponent ranked in the top 10, and this time the big lead that is squandered away, there's not quite that feel. Is that an indication of how far ETSU basketball has come?
Yeah, I think so, Marky. I think we have historically, and you know this well or better than I do, we have a proud tradition that we have won games like this, and we have been to 10 NCAA tournaments. There's some schools in the country that I've been to none or one, and so I think we do have a tradition of excellence in basketball, and there was nothing wrong with us going up there expecting to win, and we played like that, and now they're good, and they can really score the basketball, and I was really, when I talked about that earlier, I was really worried about that. We did a phenomenal job until the end of defending them. They shot 39% from the field. They shoot 54% on the year. They're number 2 or 3 in the country in that. Average 90 a game. We held them to 68. We only turned it over 8 times. I mean, if you look at the stats, the stats don't always tell the truth. That we win that game, but unfortunately, some things that you can't ever practice, and that's score pressure, time and score pressure. And I felt like late in the game, we got a little tentative on offense. We didn't attack the way we were attacking. They went to a zone, and even though a lot of people thought that was a great move, and it probably was for them at that time, truthfully, we were up 14 when they went zone, and with 4 minutes left left in the game, we were still up 11. So really, to me, it wasn't the zone, our offense. It was more that we failed to defend them down the stretch, and they scored 10 of the last 11 possessions and 7 in a row. And you can't win that way. I don't care who it is. And we didn't defend and rebound like we had up until that point, and so I thought that cost us.
I know you're going to be, and you have been torturing yourself. What if we had played this defense? What if I had put that man into the game and all this? Yeah. One guy I know that you did speak highly of is Peter Jerkin. And I, when he came as a transfer, he was a guy that I was excited about. Big name program coming in from a tall player, this sort of thing. And you've been complimentary of his play. Can you talk a little bit about the development of Jerkin?
Yeah, very proud of him and all the obstacles that he has overcome. And as you said, he came to ETSU the year before I got the job. And I've known Peter, though. I've known Peter since he was an 8th grader, basically, when I was at Tennessee. We recruited him and Hunter. And so he just was fighting so many physical issues. He came to ETSU and had really major surgery on his leg and, had some basically a steel rod put in there. And, and his size, that's hard for a big man to recover from right away. And he had no playing time. He played a total of 19 minutes in 2 years in Indiana, so he just didn't have any playing experience. And so my first year here, he played pretty well. But, I brought in Hunter Parade to sit out, and then the following year, last year, Hunter beat him out, and Ike Banks was a senior, and he got a lot of minutes, and Tevin Glass, and David Burrell, so it was hard to find minutes, and it was hard for him. And then, thank goodness, our compliance director, Kay Lennon, worked really hard to get him another year because he deserved it, what had happened in Indiana. And to his credit, Marky, he's handled it with class, he's worked really hard, gotten his body in shape, he can run the court, he can always score the ball, and he's playing at a high level right now. He's blocking shots, a factor at the rim, and moving forward, I'm excited, the dimension that he's bringing to our team right now.
Well, we're talking to Steve Forbes, as we do every Monday at 1 p.m. ETSU drops a real tough one to Xavier. One thing that I guess I do not want to tell people that this was a moral victory in any way, shape, or form is because I can remember when ETSU themselves was ranked number 10 in the country. And you talked about the history here. And so I don't want this, little brother, isn't it great to play number 10 so close? That's not the playing close. No, it's to win at this level, okay, where it's not Little League here. And I guess the question that I wanted to ask, though, is that it has, though, been 26 years since there was a national ranking at ETSU. And Steve Forbes, this may sound odd after a game like we've just had, but how close is ETSU to becoming a nationally ranked team again? Is it feasible for ETSU to be in the top 25 in the future?
Oh, it's feasible. We just have to win every game. That's just the way.
You're speaking of this year.
Oh, this year is going to be tough now.
Okay, no, I said we have to win every game. I'm sorry. I thought possibly, yeah.
Like next year, it's not a conference based on what I'm talking about. We got to win. We got to beat Kentucky. We got to beat it, Dave. We can't lose at home to Troy. And then, we can be ranked because, we're probably one of the few major teams in the country that has played 2 top 10 teams.
Mm-hmm.
We had that opportunity to beat 2. We've beaten Georgia Tech, Mississippi State. I know in the past that, Arkansas, some of those teams weren't ranked. To have the opportunity to play 2 ranked teams, that's a great opportunity. And then if you win those games, then yes, you have the opportunity to be ranked. And so that's how you do it. You got to win. You got to win the non-conference games to get ranked. And we just, we had that opportunity. Even in Kentucky, we caught them at a good time. And, we were right in the game at halftime. Well, we didn't finish. And, we didn't finish on Saturday. So we've got to learn from these things as we move forward for league play.
What do you have to do to finish? Because you're right. I mean, there was a 10-point lead, I think, against Kentucky.
Well, with 4 minutes left in the game, we're up 11. And, honestly, we have, and I was imploring them to get stops and rebounds. I kept telling them they're not going to give you the game. You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to make them miss and not hope that they miss. And I really wasn't caught up in the offense as much as we weren't defending like we had defended the, first 35 minutes of the game. And you could see it. And then Xavier started to get some confidence. And then a couple balls went their way, and then pretty soon it was a ball game. So we got to learn that you can win a game. You have to win games with defense and rebounding. And you can win it with defense. It doesn't have to be scoring. And we had scored it. We're up 11. That's plenty. And we get some stops, and then they got to come out and guard us. They got to come out and foul us. And that was the other thing. They didn't foul. They didn't get any fouls called on them. So when we had to come up to court with 10 seconds to go, whatever it was, they only had 3 personal fouls. They fouled us 3 times. Burned a lot of clock. And, so it made it really difficult. And I didn't have any timeouts left to draw something up for them. And, we got to execute at the end. And I was calling for, we work on late game situations.
Sure.
A lot. And I called for something, a play that we called, that we run, and we didn't get into it, and we didn't execute. Now, it was a crazy environment. It was loud, whatever, but you got to block all those things out. And we worked on all that yesterday again. And then, listen, in this situation, this is what we're doing. And they know that. But, again, you can't practice the pressure and the time and score in practice. It's hard to do. It's hard to copy that or to emulate that in practice. And we found that out on Saturday.
Oh, we're talking to Steve Forbes, and let's try to put that game behind you now. And the Detroit Mercy Titans come up. Dick Vitale's old school. I think that's what most people would get their identity from. But what do you know about Detroit? What can we look for tomorrow against ETSU?
Well, I think they really scored the ball. And, they've struggled to win. They've had some internal issues with I think the coach was suspended for a while, and they've had some issues. But they have talent. They have a guard that averages about 18 points a game. They've got a 4-man that just got eligible for the University of Michigan that averages about 18 points a game. They really can get up and down the court, and they're playing at home. So we've got to do a good job defensively, of taking them out of transition, making sure they got to earn what they get, and then. I think defensively, I don't think they're strong defensively as most teams we've played, so we've got to take advantage of that and get good shots. But, they're averaging 86 points a game. They can score the ball, but they're giving up 91. And so we've got to, we can't let them come out here and score 90 or 80 or 90, 90 points in the game. We've got to guard them. And, they've got good personnel. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in double figures. And a 6th guy is averaging about 8.8. So we're shooting 45% from the field as a team. That's pretty solid. 77 from the line. And, but they're giving up 47%. So we've got to do a good job of taking advantage of them on this when we score the ball.
Well, you just came off, you mentioned the schedule that you have played against Kentucky and against Xavier, but this week in the Southern Conference, it's going to be the toughest week, I think, for when you look at the teams that some of the members will be playing. For instance, tomorrow, while you're playing Detroit Mercy, the Citadel will be going to Columbus, Ohio, and playing Ohio State. Mercer will be playing Alabama. Then on Wednesday, you've got Wofford against North Carolina. Furman against Tennessee, big conference opponents. And the question I guess I ask is that and we've talked about this, if the Southern Conference is ever going to be that conference that gets a second team into the NCAAs, you got to win these games. You can't just lead by 22 and lose and all this. Of those 4 games, by any chance, do you give your SoCon brethren a chance in any of those games?
Well, yeah, sure I do.
Okay.
I texted Wes Miller on Saturday after we lost. I was feeling about as low as I've ever felt, congratulating him on beating NC State.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big win for him and his program, and it's a good win for our league. And we should support each other, in those games. I think Tennessee is got a really good team. I've had a chance to watch them, but I think Furman's really good, and I think that's going to be a heck of a game. I think Furman can go in there and give them the game. Winning at Carolina is hard. I think Mercer can go to Bama and win. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Rhiannon Holland's been having a heck of a year. know why.
Mm-hmm.
The students are gone. And so they feel like it's a little bit more of a stale environment to go in there and play. Now, we didn't play in no stale environment. That's the difference, in my opinion, of us playing at Mississippi State or, Georgia Tech. Or we went to Kentucky and to Xavier. Those are really, really hard places to play. They pack it out. I mean, we haven't sold out crowd yet on Saturday. But we did a phenomenal job of keeping the crowd out of it till right at the end, and then they became a factor. But those are the reasons why I think you see so many of these games at this time of the year, is because these guys try to schedule these games in hoping that maybe they won't have as good an environment as they typically would have.
Yeah, and that's Cincinnati area. That really is good college basketball area historically, and there's a lot of interest. I mean, it's right there with Indiana and Kentucky, border-wise, so you'd be there. But you look at, historically, Cincinnati, it's a program that's won a national championship in its history. I mean, Xavier, as you say, Dayton's all in there, Northern Kentucky. There's a lot of interest in college basketball in that area, and I know a lot of the locals hold it quite are quite proud of that as well. So, yeah, that is a difficult place to play. And it is mentioned that you'd mentioned UNCG and beating NC State this Saturday. I'm glad you mentioned that. And NC State's a team that beat Arizona earlier this year. So that's a big win, as well as Wofford earlier this year defeating let's see, Wofford defeat Georgia Tech. And for that matter, a team from Northern Kentucky that went to the NCAAs and ETSU. Anyway, we've been talking to Steve Forbes here, and I want to thank you for joining us here. I guess looking back now, your non-conference schedule is about to come to a close. I guess it's the next. You still have a few more weeks, but next month then the SoCon really starts up and all this. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've definitely tested our team, and we've been on the road a lot, and we've played quality opponents. We haven't, just beat up on some no-name teams, and so I think our guys are battle-tested. And, it's an important week for us. Tomorrow at Detroit, we have a quick turnaround. Play Georgia Southern on Friday night. Besides Kentucky and Xavier, they have the best RPI of all the teams that we played. They were in the 30s last week. That'll be a tough game. And then we have a D2. We have a Tuscaloosa before we start conference play. So we have a chance to finish strong here, non-conference play, and then get a lot more, get some momentum back going into, when we open up on the road. And, SoCon did not do us any favors with the schedule. We open up 3 games on the road at Mercer, at Sanford, at Chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to have our hands full.
All right. It's Steve Forbes. He's head coach of the ETSU Buccaneers. They are still 6-4 and still a deep team, but maybe after that loss to Xavier, trying to find themselves here. Thanks for joining us. And if you can stay on for just 1 second as I play the commercials, Tri-City Sports Now. I'm going to talk a little about the NFL coming back. Now, I want to apologize to you. I was not able to watch the game. The